Success has no patience for the weak. It does not come to those who hesitate, who wish, who wait for someone to hand them power. It bows only to those who refuse to kneel. It listens only to the relentless. It bends only to the unbreakable. The world is not moved by fragile intentions. It is moved by those whose will cannot be crushed. Every great empire ever built, every name that echoes through time, every story that changed history was not written by the soft, the doubtful, or the timid. It was written by those who walked through storms, bled in silence, stood against fear, and whispered to themselves, "I will not break." The world will not give you victory because you want it. It will test you for it. It will hit you again and again until it knows what you're made of. And when it sees that you do not bend, when it learns that your spirit is forged in fire, that is when it bows. That is when it opens the door. Not a moment sooner. This is why most people never rise. They think success is something to be claimed with words, with dreams, with polite requests. But success doesn't respond to softness. It demands power. It demands resilience. It demands sacrifice. When Thomas Edison stood alone with his failed experiments piled at his feet, the world didn't hand him the light. He took it. When Abraham Lincoln faced a nation splitting in two, the world didn't hand him unity. He fought for it. When Henry Ford was mocked for dreaming of cars instead of carriages, the world didn't hand him respect. He earned it with steel and stubbornness. Weakness waits. Strength builds. The path to greatness has never been paved with ease. It has always been a battlefield, not of weapons, but of will. Every great man and woman who stood on the mountain of success was forged in the valley of pain. They walked when their legs shook. They rose when their hands bled. They spoke when their voices trembled. And they kept going long after the crowd fell silent. This is the truth most people don't want to hear. Success is not for everyone. It is not for those who choose comfort over growth. It is not for those who flinch at the first sign of struggle. It is not for those who treat their dreams like fragile glass. Success demands warriors. It demands that you stand in the fire and refuse to melt. The weak pray for a smooth road. The unbreakable build their strength to conquer the rough one. You must decide what kind of person you will be. Will you be the one who complains about the storm, or the one who learns to walk through the rain? Will you be the one who gives excuses, or the one who gives everything? Will you wait for permission, or will you claim what is yours with blood, sweat, and unshakable resolve? The moment you choose to become unbreakable, the world will change its tone. It will still fight you. It will still test you. But it will learn to respect you. Because strength commands respect. Not noise. Not wishes. Strength. The man who refuses to fall becomes a pillar. The woman who refuses to shatter becomes a storm. And the world always bows to storms. But to become unbreakable, you must first confront the truth, the hardest truth. No one is coming to save you. No one will fight this battle for you. No one will hand you the life you dream about. It is yours to build or lose. The weak blame the world. The strong build their own. History does not remember the complainers. It remembers the builders. It remembers Walt Disney, who built dreams out of rejection. It remembers Andrew Carnegie, who rose from nothing to shape industries. It remembers Oprah Winfrey, who turned pain into power. These were not people handed privilege. They were people handed pain. And they turned that pain into a kingdom. You can do the same. But only if you are willing to stop being fragile. Fragility is not about weakness of the body. It is weakness of the will. It is choosing excuses over execution. It is choosing fear over fight. It is waiting for the world to soften instead of hardening yourself. No one can be unbreakable for you. That is your responsibility. You must decide to grow teeth, to sharpen your spine, to build armor from every wound. You must decide to use pain as your forge, not your coffin. When you say, "I will not break," it must not be a sentence. It must be a vow. A vow like the one Lincoln made when he chose to lead through war instead of stepping aside. A vow like Edison made when he failed for the 1,000th time. A vow like Ford made when the world laughed. A vow like Disney made when banks slammed their doors in his face. A vow like Oprah made when rejection tried to silence her. You see, strength isn't loud. It doesn't beg for attention. Real strength walks through darkness quietly, one step at a time, until the world turns and realizes it can't be ignored. You want success. Then stop talking like the weak. Start walking like the unbreakable. You want freedom? Then stop waiting for rescue. Become the storm that breaks the chains. You want respect? Then build yourself into someone the world can't overlook. Every day you waste waiting for life to get easier, someone else is out there making themselves stronger. Every second you doubt yourself, someone else is turning their pain into power. Every excuse you make builds another wall between you and the life you want. The only way out is through. Through the pain. Through the failure. Through the fear. Through the endless nights when nothing seems to move. That's where strength is born. When you face pain, don't flinch. Face it like steel faces fire. Fire doesn't destroy steel. It forges it. Pain doesn't destroy the strong. It shapes them. The world will try to make you believe that success is about luck, about timing, about privilege. But deep down, in every real story of greatness, there is a single thread: unbreakable will. Will is what made Edison turn darkness into light. Will is what made Lincoln hold a nation together. Will is what made Ford challenge an entire industry. Will is what made Disney build magic out of failure. Will is what made Oprah turn pain into empire. It is not talent alone. It is not intelligence alone. It is not luck. It is will. Will to endure. Will to rise. Will to fight again when the world has already counted you out. The weak see walls and stop. The unbreakable see walls and learn to climb. The weak see failure and retreat. The unbreakable see failure and sharpen their blade. The weak cry that the mountain is too high. The unbreakable become the mountain. And here's the secret: the world respects the mountain. If you want to be respected, if you want to be remembered, if you want to live a life that echoes after you're gone, then you must become unshakable, unbendable, unbreakable. This is not about never feeling fear. It's about refusing to let fear control you. This is not about never falling. It's about rising every time. This is not about living without pain. It's about letting pain make you indestructible. The world bows to those who bend it, not those who wait for it to change. So stand. Even if your legs shake. Speak. Even if your voice trembles. Fight. Even if your hands bleed. Because this is how the unbreakable are born. Not in moments of applause, but in moments of agony. Your power is not waiting somewhere out there. It's in you. In the choices you make when the night is silent. In the steps you take when no one believes. In the strength you build when no one watches. This is your forge. This is your fire. And if you refuse to break, the world will bow. The day you stop wishing for an easy life is the day you start building a powerful one. The world is full of people who pray for the storm to pass, but the ones who rise are the ones who learn to command the storm. They build their strength, their mind, their will, and they do it when no one is watching. That is why the world bows to them. If you want to be unbreakable, you must understand something vital. Clarity is your blade. Without clarity, your strength is wasted. A warrior who doesn't know where to strike will swing until he's exhausted. A builder who doesn't have a blueprint will pile bricks into chaos. Clarity gives direction to your fire. It makes your steps sharper. Weak people live in fog. They say they want success but don't know what it looks like. They say they want freedom but don't define it. They say they want a better life but never decide what that means. The unbreakable live with precision. They see the mountain they must climb. They know the shape of the crown they're chasing. They know who they must become. When Thomas Edison decided to bring light to the world, it wasn't a vague wish. It was a sharp, relentless vision. When Abraham Lincoln decided to unite a broken nation, it wasn't a whisper. It was a vow. When Henry Ford imagined cars on every road, he wasn't daydreaming. He saw it. He built it. He became the man who could hold it. That is the power of clarity. It strips away hesitation. It silences distractions. It turns your focus into a weapon the world cannot ignore. You must stop speaking in soft wishes and start declaring in sharp visions. Stop saying, "I hope." Start saying, "I will." Stop floating. Start building. And once your vision is sharp, your belief must become your armor. Belief is not a pretty word. It is not a slogan. It is not a soft thing you whisper when life is kind. Belief is the iron shield you carry when everything around you tries to break you. It is the whisper that says, "I'm not done yet. when the world thinks you've already lost. Belief is what kept Edison building after failure number 999. Belief is what kept Lincoln leading when blood painted the land. Belief is what kept Disney dreaming when the world told him he had nothing left. Belief is what keeps the unbreakable alive when everyone else falls silent. Weak belief is like a paper umbrella in a storm. Strong belief is like steel in the rain. It doesn't shatter. It doesn't rust. It doesn't bow. But belief alone is not enough. Belief must marry discipline. Because belief without action is a wish, and wishes die in silence. Discipline is the fire that keeps belief alive on the days you don't feel strong. Discipline is the voice that drags you out of bed when the world tells you to sleep. Discipline is the hammer that builds empires brick by brick when applause is nowhere to be found. People look at giants like they were born with crowns. But every crown was forged in the dark. Edison spent years in failure. Lincoln spent years in defeat. Ford was called crazy. Disney went bankrupt. Oprah faced rejection after rejection. But discipline kept their hands moving, their feet walking, their fire burning. Weak people wait to feel ready. Unbreakable people act anyway. Weak people wait for the perfect time. Unbreakable people build it. Weak people stop when it hurts. Unbreakable people rise because it hurts. Discipline is not punishment. It is liberation. It is how you break the chains of hesitation. It's how you build a body, a mind, a soul that doesn't fold when life throws its worst at you. And discipline creates momentum, the kind that crushes doubt, the kind that silences fear. When you move every day with focus, something inside you changes. The whispers of weakness grow quiet. The fire grows louder. And the world begins to bend, inch by inch, to the will of your discipline. But as you climb, as your fire grows, something else will test you, resistance. The moment you start to rise, the world will push back. It will throw pain, loss, betrayal, failure. Not because it hates you. Because it needs to see if you are real. The storm doesn't come to stop the unbreakable. It comes to reveal them. When the wind howled, Lincoln didn't crumble. Edison didn't run. Ford didn't fold. They stood, not because they were fearless, but because their fire was louder than the storm. Weakness screams in panic. Strength speaks in silence. Pain will visit you. It will knock on your door when you least expect it. It will demand to see what you're made of. Weak people see pain as punishment. Unbreakable people see it as their forge. Because fire doesn't destroy steel. It shapes it. You can't become unbreakable without breaking. You can't build strength without resistance. You can't command success without walking through storms. When the world hits you, stand taller. When doubt whispers, roar louder. When fear grows, sharpen your blade. This is the way of those who rise. This is the way of those who make success bow. But there's another secret the weak never learn. Being unbreakable is not about being rigid. It's about being resilient. A brittle branch snaps in a storm. But a tree with deep roots bends and rises again. The strong are not those who never fall. They are those who adapt, who adjust, who rise again with sharper claws and stronger bones. When plans collapse, the weak quit. The strong build new ones. When doors close, the weak wait. The strong build their own. Adaptability is power. It turns failure into foundation. It turns rejection into redirection. It turns storms into fuel. Edison didn't follow one path to light. He followed 1,000 failures to find it. Ford didn't follow one road. He built his own. Disney didn't wait for permission. He painted the sky with his own dreams. Unbreakable people don't need perfect conditions. They make the conditions irrelevant. The world respects power because power moves without asking. It speaks in actions, not excuses. But here is where many fall. They build strength, they build momentum, they climb, and then pride whispers in their ear. Pride is the enemy that comes dressed as a friend. It tells you that you've made it, that you no longer need to push, that your fire can rest. That is how empires fall. The truly unbreakable never stop sharpening. Andrew Carnegie kept learning. Lincoln kept growing. Edison kept building. Oprah kept evolving. Because they knew the crown can be lost the moment you stop becoming stronger. Complacency is the graveyard of greatness. The moment you think you are untouchable is the moment the world shows you that you're not. True strength is humble. It remembers the knights that built it. It respects the fire that forged it. It never forgets the hunger that made it. And this hunger is your gift. When others grow tired, your hunger will keep you awake. When others stop, your hunger will keep you moving. When others settle, your hunger will keep you becoming. You must choose to live with hunger, to let it live inside your bones. Hunger is what separates the weak from the relentless. The world does not give crowns to those who rest. It gives them to those who keep climbing when the air gets thin. There comes a point in every warrior's journey where hunger alone is not enough. You must have purpose, not the shallow kind that bends in the wind, but the kind that anchors mountains. Purpose is the unshakable force beneath the fire. It's what keeps the blade sharp when the world grows dark. Without purpose, strength roams aimlessly. With it, strength becomes destiny. Weak people live without purpose. They chase distractions. They follow noise. They run toward anything that promises quick relief. But the unbreakable move like storms guided by a single star. Their purpose is carved into their bones. It is not borrowed, not begged for, not handed down. It is forged. When Abraham Lincoln stood before a divided nation, he didn't act for applause. He acted because his purpose burned brighter than the hate around him. When Thomas Edison kept working through failure, it wasn't for praise. It was because his purpose would not let him sleep. When Walt Disney built dreams out of dust, he did it not because the world believed in him, but because purpose made disbelief irrelevant. Purpose is not something you find. It's something you decide. It's the hill you choose to die on. It's the fire you feed every day, even when no one else sees the flame. And once your purpose is locked in, the world feels your weight. The weak whisper their goals. The unbreakable roar with their actions. But even with purpose, you must carry a weapon stronger than steel, resilience. Because no matter how sharp your vision, how clear your purpose, how fierce your hunger, life will strike you down. It will hit harder than you expect. It will take things you thought you couldn't live without. It will test not your dreams, but your core. Resilience is not about smiling through pain. It's about standing when your knees want to collapse. It's about taking another step when your body begs to stop. It's about whispering, "This won't be the end of me," when everything screams that it should be. When Ford was rejected by every major investor, he didn't vanish. When Disney was told he had no imagination, he didn't fold. When Oprah was fired for being unfit for television, she didn't disappear. They rose because resilience was not an option. It was who they were. The weak wait for pain to end. The unbreakable use pain as their furnace. And the truth is, resilience is built in the quiet. Not on the big stage. Not in the light of applause. It's built at 2 a.m. when no one believes in you. It's built when you get up after failing again. It's built when you wipe your own blood and keep walking. Pain does not make you weak. Quitting does. But to be truly unbreakable, you must not just survive pain, you must transform it. This is what separates those who merely endure from those who conquer. When pain becomes your teacher, the world becomes your student. When pain becomes your fuel, the world becomes your battlefield. Edison learned more from failure than from success. Lincoln became unshakable through loss. Oprah's wounds became her weapon. Disney's rejections became his blueprint. Carnegie's poverty became his drive. Every legend you've ever heard carried scars. But those scars were not signs of weakness, they were proof of power. Your scars can either chain you or crown you. You decide which. The weak see scars as shame. The unbreakable see them as symbols of survival. There will be days when you will fall on your knees. Days when your dreams feel distant. Days when no one claps, no one believes, and no one understands. These are not signs that you've lost. These are the moments where the unbreakable are born. The crowd does not witness these moments. History does. The unbreakable don't pray for lighter loads. They build stronger backs. They don't pray for shorter roads. They sharpen their shoes. They don't cry for the world to change. They change themselves until the world must follow. But purpose and resilience alone are not enough. You must master the art of identity. Because at the end of the day, the world doesn't give you what you wish for, it gives you what you are. Weak people build their identity on circumstances. If the wind is kind, they rise. If the wind is harsh, they fall. But the unbreakable build their identity like a fortress. It's not determined by the world. It commands the world. The identity of Edison was not a failed inventor. It was the man who will bring light. The identity of Lincoln was not a divided man in a divided nation. It was the leader who will hold this union together. The identity of Disney was not a man who went bankrupt. It was the creator of worlds. They did not wait to become legends after they succeeded. They became legends first, in their identity. You must decide who you are long before the world acknowledges it. You must say, I am unbreakable not when the crown is on your head, but when your hands are still bloody from building. Identity is not words. It's the quiet fire you carry. The unbreakable say less and build more. They know who they are. And the world has no choice but to adjust. And when identity is forged, purpose anchored, resilience sharpened, something extraordinary happens. The fear of failure fades. Because failure loses its power over those who know who they are. Failure cannot destroy you if your foundation is stronger than the storm. The weak see failure as an end. The unbreakable see it as a doorway. Edison opened that door 1,000 times. Lincoln walked through it with a nation on his shoulders. Ford walked through it carrying the weight of doubt. Disney walked through it when no one believed. Oprah walked through it when the world tried to silence her. Failure bends to those who refuse to bow to it. And when fear of failure fades, a new kind of strength rises, unstoppable momentum. Because the unbreakable don't move timidly. They move with force. This is the secret most people never understand. Success is not handed to the powerful. It is surrendered to the relentless. The world eventually bows to the one who refuses to. But this journey is lonely. It always has been. The path of the unbreakable is not crowded. It's carved by those willing to walk alone through darkness so others can follow the light they create. The weak fear loneliness. The strong build empires in it. The silence that breaks most people is the silence that forges legends. Edison worked alone. Lincoln walked through nights when no one agreed. Ford built when no one invested. Disney dreamed when everyone doubted. Oprah believed when no one else did. In the silence, they didn't beg for validation. They became their own validation. If you can learn to be alone with your fire, the world will one day feel its heat. So, when the world is silent, when no one claps, when the darkness surrounds you, don't run. That is the moment you are being forged. That is the moment your bones learn to carry weight the world cannot see yet. That is the moment you become unbreakable. There comes a time in every great journey when the world no longer looks at what you want, it looks at who you are. This is the moment where the weak break and the unbreakable rise. Because strength was never about pretending the road was easy. It was always about standing tall when the weight of your destiny pressed against your chest. The world does not reward hesitation. It respects power. Real power. The kind that doesn't scream, doesn't ask, doesn't need validation. The kind that simply moves, like a force of nature. The sun does not ask for applause when it rises. It just rises, and everything else adjusts. That is what the unbreakable become. Weakness waits to be understood. Strength makes the world understand. The greatest mistake most people make is believing that success is a gift. It isn't. It's a responsibility. It's the crown forged from pain, carried with blood, sharpened through nights of doubt. Those who think they can touch greatness with soft hands have never understood its weight. When Abraham Lincoln stood as the country burned, power wasn't comfortable. It was heavy. When Thomas Edison built the future with nothing but failure surrounding him, power wasn't easy. It was ruthless. When Walt Disney dreamed of castles in a world that laughed at him, power wasn't convenient. It was lonely. Power does not belong to the fragile. It belongs to those who can hold its weight when the world shakes. And the weight is real. You will lose people. You will lose comfort. You will lose the luxury of being average. But what you gain is unshakable identity, strength, legacy. Weak people chase applause. The unbreakable chase impact. Because applause fades, impact echoes. The man who builds a wall may be forgotten, but the one who builds an empire becomes legend. And legend is not born in noise. It is born in the quiet persistence of the soul. When no one believes, when no one claps, when no one understands, and still, the work continues. That is where legends rise. Look at history. The weak have always waited for permission. The strong have always taken the pen and written their own story. Andrew Carnegie did not wait for wealth to find him. he became wealth. Henry Ford did not wait for the world to accept his vision. He built a world that had no choice but to follow. Oprah Winfrey did not wait for the world to hand her a voice. She forged one the world could not silence. When you become unbreakable, you stop asking. You start declaring. This is the turning point most will never reach, because it requires something they fear the most, stepping fully into their power. Power terrifies the weak because it exposes everything, their excuses, their hesitation, their fears. But for the unbreakable, power is not a threat. It's home. When you truly become unbreakable, the noise outside no longer matters. Doubt no longer controls you. Rejection no longer defines you. Fear no longer guides you. Because power is not about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. You are your greatest battlefield. The war is not out there in the world. It's inside you, between the voice that says, "Stop, it's too much," and the voice that growls, "Keep going, you were built for this." Every step forward is won in that war. Every crown is earned in that silence. Every empire is forged in that fire. The weak listen to their fear. The unbreakable command it. And here's the truth: the fear never goes away. The doubt never disappears. The weight never becomes lighter. You simply become stronger. When Lincoln faced chaos, the fear was there. When Edison faced failure, the doubt was there. When Ford faced rejection, the weight was there. When Disney faced bankruptcy, the silence was deafening. When Oprah faced the world, the fire was heavy. But they walked through it because they had already won the war within. You must understand, if you do not master yourself, the world will master you. And the world is merciless. It will hand you distraction and call it comfort. It will feed you excuses and call it safety. It will bury your fire and call it normal. But the unbreakable refuse to be buried. They rise like roots cracking through concrete. They rise like storms tearing through silence. They rise like suns that cannot be stopped. This is why success bows to them. Not because the world loves them, but because the world fears their will. Because the one who has mastered themselves is untouchable. You must make the decision to become that person. The one who doesn't flinch when storms arrive. The one who doesn't break when bridges burn. The one who doesn't wait for light, because they have become it. That is what it means to be unbreakable. And when you walk through the world with that fire, everything changes. Opportunities stop running away from you. They start turning toward you. Doors stop closing in your face. They start creaking open. The world recognizes the weight of power, even if it never admits it. Weakness begs for a seat at the table. Strength builds its own. But there is something even deeper. Something only the truly unbreakable understand. Power without purpose is chaos. But power with purpose becomes legacy. The greatest names in history were not just strong, they were focused. They did not simply fight. They built. They planted trees whose shade they would never sit in. That is legacy. Lincoln didn't fight just to lead. He fought to change the future. Edison didn't build for applause. He built to light the world. Ford didn't innovate to be remembered. He built roads for generations. Disney didn't create to impress. He built magic for children he would never meet. Oprah didn't speak to be famous. She spoke to awaken others. That is why their names still breathe in history. The weak live for today. The unbreakable build for tomorrow. And you must decide what your legacy will be. Your name will either be forgotten like a whisper, or remembered like thunder. Not because of what you wanted, but because of what you became. Because legacy is not built on wishes. It's carved in stone through relentless action. But legacy is not about monuments. It's about impact. It's about leaving the world unable to go back to what it was before you existed. This is what happens when power and purpose collide. The world stops asking who you are. It starts remembering your name. But remember, to build legacy, you must live in a way that echoes. Every day. Every moment. Every decision. The weak live like time is infinite. The unbreakable live like every second is a hammer striking the shape of their destiny. Time is the fire that either burns your dreams to ashes or forges them into history. And time bows to no one. You can waste it wishing. Or you can wield it. And those who wield time become untouchable. They live in focus, in purpose, in discipline so sharp it cuts through the noise. They don't wake up hoping for greatness. They wake up building it. They don't ask, "What if it fails?" They whisper, "What if I never try?" That is the voice of the unbreakable. The world has never belonged to those who hesitate. It has always belonged to those who dare, to those who fight, to those who rise again and again, not because it's easy, but because their fire refuses to die. And when that fire burns long enough, strong enough, the world bows. Not out of kindness, out of respect. Because the unbreakable do not ask for thrones. They build them. There comes a day when you will look at yourself in the mirror and finally understand that no one is coming to build your dream for you. No one is coming to fight your battles, to climb your mountain, to carry your fire. That reflection staring back at you is the only soldier who can win this war. The weak keep waiting for a savior. The unbreakable become their own. The moment you decide to stop being a victim of your circumstances, the world starts to change. Not because the world grows softer, but because you grow harder. The winds don't weaken. The storms don't fade. But your roots go deeper, your stance grows stronger, and your roar gets louder. The weak keep asking the world, "Why me?" The unbreakable whisper back, "Try me." Success bows not to the loudest, not to the luckiest, not to the privileged, but to the one who never surrendered. And surrender is not just an action. It's a state of mind. It begins the moment you allow your doubts to speak louder than your determination. It grows when you choose comfort over purpose. It wins when your excuses become your identity. But the unbreakable know something different. They know pain is not the enemy. Pain is the teacher. They know rejection is not the end. Rejection is the redirection. They know the world doesn't owe them a thing. And still, they rise and take it. History is filled with names who refused to surrender. Thomas Edison was not special because he invented the light bulb. He was special because he failed more times than most people ever try. Abraham Lincoln was not great because he won easily. He was great because he bled for something bigger than himself. Walt Disney was not a legend because the world believed in him. He became a legend because he built magic while everyone else laughed. The unbreakable do not wait for belief to come from outside. They build belief like a fortress from the inside. There will be nights when your mind will scream that it's over. There will be mornings when you won't feel the strength to rise. There will be moments when it feels like everything you've built is collapsing. Those are the defining moments. Not when the crowd cheers, but when the silence is so loud it drowns everything else. The weak let those moments break them. The unbreakable let those moments forge them. Every strike against you can either shatter your bones or sharpen your sword. Every failure can either bury you or build your foundation. Every betrayal can either close your heart or fuel your fire. And here is the raw truth. The world doesn't care about your pain. It doesn't slow down because you're tired. It doesn't soften because you're struggling. It moves. Ruthlessly. Indifferently. And that is why the weak remain forgotten. But the unbreakable. They make the world turn around to watch. The weak hope for kindness. The strong build power. And this power is not something gifted. It's earned in the places no one sees. When you wake up before the world. When you fight through exhaustion. When you keep showing up, even when no one notices. Power is not handed to you in a moment of glory. It's forged in 1,000 invisible battles. When you master that, when your will becomes unshakable, something extraordinary happens. Fear stops being your jailer. It becomes your compass. Every place fear tries to stop you from walking is exactly where greatness is waiting. The weak run from fear. The unbreakable run toward it. Because fear is not a wall. It's a door. And behind it lies everything you've ever wanted, but only if you're strong enough to push through. When Lincoln walked toward the storm of war, fear was there. When Edison walked toward endless failure, fear was there. When Ford walked toward rejection, fear was there. When Disney walked toward the unknown, fear was there. When Oprah stood in front of a world that told her she didn't belong, fear was there. But they walked anyway. Greatness doesn't live in the absence of fear. It lives in the presence of courage. And courage is not some grand, dramatic act. It's choosing to rise one more time when your soul is tired. It's taking another step when your knees shake. It's holding the line when your heart wants to flee. This is the soul of the unbreakable. The weak want easy victories. The unbreakable earn their crowns in blood, sweat, and fire. Because only then is the crown real. Only then is the throne steady. Only then does success bow. The world has tried to teach people to run from difficulty, to fear pain, to avoid challenge. But the unbreakable understand, pressure is a privilege. It's the sculptor of greatness. Diamonds are not born in comfort. They are born in crushing force. The same fire that burns the weak forges the strong. And in your journey, the world will test you again and again, not because it doubts you, but because it wants to know if you are real. Anyone can speak like a king. Few can carry the crown. The unbreakable don't just wear the crown, they earn it every day. And here's something the weak will never understand. The higher you climb, the lonelier it gets. But loneliness does not mean emptiness. For the unbreakable, loneliness is the workshop where legends are built. You will lose friends. You will outgrow people. You will walk alone through storms. And that is not tragedy, that is transformation. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly in a crowd. It transforms in the cocoon, alone, unseen, silent. And when it emerges, it flies where the crowd cannot follow. Your silence is not a weakness. It is the forge. Your solitude is not a curse. It is the crown room. The weak fear the quiet. The unbreakable become it. And when you emerge from that silence, when you rise from that cocoon of pain, the world will not recognize you. It will see the fire in your eyes, the weight in your steps, the storm in your voice. It will know that you are not the same. Because the world recognizes power. Not the kind that boasts. Not the kind that demands. But the kind that doesn't need to. And that is the kind of power that makes success bow.